Welcome to the Sales Whisper Podcast, session 16. Are you snap selling to big companies? Hey everybody, today's guest on the Sales Whisper Podcast is Jill Konrath. She is the author of Snap Selling and Selling to Big Companies. She's an expert in new customer acquisition and creating business value. She's a frequent speaker at sales kickoff meetings and conferences. Her expertise has been featured by ABC News, Fortune, Forbes, the New York Times, Inc., Selling Power, and now The Sales Whisperer. So without further ado, here's Miss Jill Konrath. Jill, hello and welcome.
Well, thanks so much. Bob, I can't talk. We got to start all over.
There's no editing on that. That's why people love this, because they hear us warts and all. I mean, my kids come in, the dogs are barking. So I've been reading your stuff. You probably don't even know it. For years, and now I know you've got a new book. You've got some things going on LinkedIn. So that's why I reached out to have you on the show. My audience is far and wide, right? It goes from entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, up to, my background. When I found you, I was selling to big companies.
Really?
And made the transition, do a lot with Infusionsoft now, or working with smaller companies. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of wanted to pick your brain along the whole spectrum, from helping small businesses make maybe a small sale, and then talking about big businesses, corporate America salespeople doing their job. I mean, so what do you see in your background and experience, and as things have changed, right? I see you now on LinkedIn, so you're embracing social media. How do people sell today? What should they be doing? What mistakes are you seeing people make?
Well, that's a broad question. What mistakes am I seeing people make? I really believe that today's buyers, and I don't just mean purchasing agents, I could be a VP of sales or, CEO, but today's buyers are just so savvy about what's out there, and they realize that they have many, many options, and when they have any problems or anything, they go online and can find out the information that they're looking for without ever having to talk to a salesperson. And so by the time they get to a salesperson, they're fairly self-educated, at least about a lot of things, and they may even have an opinion about what they think is the best option for them. And there's a mismatch between the seller's behavior and what the buyer is expecting, because many of the sellers are still stuck in, my job is to tell this person about my stuff, my products or services, and to try to convince them that we're the best thing. And that is the last thing in the world that they want to hear. They want to have a conversation with an intelligent person who understands their business issues, needs, challenges, etc., and have a conversation. So there's a real mismatch between what sales behavior is going on out there and what buyers want.
Right. So I love that point you're bringing up, because I tell at least my entrepreneurial clients that now's a great time. They're really empowered to do battle against the big brands, because they can be so fluid and adapt quickly. They can make blog posts and videos and things to help their clients get educated, rather than try to change a big sales force and how they do things. But but that being said, how can the corporate America salesperson adjust? If they're not in charge of things, but they're still in control of their own appointments and how they conduct the sales call. I mean, what are you telling the corporate America sales folks to do?
I'm telling the corporate America sales folks the exact same thing I'm telling the entrepreneurs. You need to know that. The entrepreneurs oftentimes will move into the marketing aspect too, and we'll talk about it. But the reality of it is, if you are going after a potential client, you have to educate yourself on who they are, what you know about them, what you might know about their position, their challenges, etc. And you have to align everything you say and do around what their issues and needs are, as opposed to what you want to sell. And you have to drop that "I'm here to try to sell you something" mentality, and you have to focus on being a consultant whose products or services just happen to address particular issues
Right.
or that our clients are facing, our prospects are facing, or help them achieve the goals that they're trying to reach. And so it's like you have to take off the stupid sales hat and do your homework, get educated, and you have to sound like an intelligent person on the phone, not a salesperson. And there's a real difference.
So here's a loaded question. What's more important, product knowledge or customer knowledge?
Customer knowledge.
Amen. All right. I'm glad you said that because I would have had to end the interview.
Yeah. I mean, product knowledge is just something you need. It's needed, but it is grossly insufficient. Because unless you can connect it with what your prospects are struggling with and what they're trying to achieve, or what their own personal metrics are and priorities, then it's worthless. Product knowledge doesn't do anything. That only helps you explain something when the customer is at that final place where they've actually decided to change. The biggest issue we're facing is people don't want to make a change. They're overwhelmed, they're swamped, and so the last thing they want to do is make a change. And yet when we talk about here's our stuff, going back to that, again, it's a mismatch because they don't want to change. And why would you want to hear about somebody's stuff when you're not going to do anything differently?
So you're talking about doing research and knowing your customers. I mean, is that why you're branching out into the LinkedIn sales secrets?
Yeah, well, I've been on the LinkedIn bandwagon. I mean, I even wrote about LinkedIn in my first book, which came out in 2005. Okay. So, I mean, I took a look at LinkedIn in 2005 when it was, just a fraction of what it is today. And I went, this is a gold mine for salespeople or entrepreneurs. It's a gold mine out there of incredible information that can tell you so much about a person prior to initiating contact.
Right.
A lot of people looked at it and they thought it was a job resume site, and they popped up resumes, but I knew it was more than that from the very first moment I saw it, and started leveraging it and looking people up. And today, the reality is every customer is if they have a meeting with you, there's a high likelihood that they will Google you ahead of time. And if they Google you, what pops up is your LinkedIn profile first.
Yep.
And what they see impacts how they judge you. And if it looks like you have a bare bones resume, they will be turned off. And it's like, ugh, this person doesn't sound neat. Or if you have what I call job hunter resume, which is one that really is trying to showcase, for example, that you're salespeople and you're a killer salesperson with aggressive tendencies who never lets prospects get away. I mean, if you put something like that up, which may be impressive to a VP of sales, for a new job, but it like if you're a customer and you see that you're a shark, this person's a shark, you're turned off too. And so the reality is LinkedIn, as I see it today, where the way it's grown into, it is a place for anybody to establish their professional presence and to become an intelligent human being in their prospect's mind before they ever meet you.
Right.
Like you send them, you call them, you email them, you try to get on their calendar to have a conversation with them, and they go check you out. And if they look at a profile that shows that, that you work with a specific kind of customer who's very similar to them, and it stresses the kind of issues and challenges that you work with people on, and it highlights the results that your company gets for the customers, I mean, that immediately starts setting you apart from every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's out there.
Right. Well, how can people use social media, use LinkedIn efficiently, right? And not, I know it happens to me. I do my best just to stay away, like from Facebook and things. If I got to get some work done, it's like I got to turn this stuff off. But obviously for work, I use a tool called Reportive. It's a free plugin for Safari and Firefox, and it pulls up profiles of people. So I'll connect right away with folks, but how can we be efficient on LinkedIn and not get sucked into, social media goof-offedness?
Well, there's not a lot of social media goof-offedness in LinkedIn. I mean, there is in Twitter and there is in Facebook, but LinkedIn is really built as a business site.
Yep.
What you need to do is you need to look at LinkedIn as just the preparation work that you need to either learn about your prospects before you're going to meet with them, to find some sort of way to connect with them, to look at what their profiles say about them and see if you can understand what's important to them. I mean, it's all that, and it's a chance to create lists by doing certain searches. You can compile your own list. So it really, what we found in doing our survey was that those people who were, blowing it out on LinkedIn, they treated it as a tool. They're like their personal database that they were mining for the right kind of information. And it was very business focused. For example, I have a saved search, because a lot of people don't know about saved searches, but I have a saved search right now for VPs of sales from technology companies and business services companies in 50-mile radius of Minneapolis.
Okay.
And so that saved search, first of all, has all the people that meet my criteria, and I have company size parameters in there as well. So I have that saved search. So anytime I'm looking for who I might be prospecting to, if I wanted to go after the Minneapolis market more, which is where I'm at, what I would then do is I would, go there, look these people up, and I could initiate a campaign to go after a conversation with any one of these people. And the neat thing about this saved search function too is that anytime somebody new is added to that list, I get notified in my email that Terry Smith has joined XYZ Corporation as the new VP of Sales.
Right.
So then I know that's a trigger to me that there's a change in that sales organization. And anytime you get a new leader in, that means that there's probably a change in priorities and that they may be doing something different fairly quickly because they want to make their own mark.
Right.
So again, it just tells me when to contact people. Now that's smart. It's smart selling because, Terry's new in this position. He's got to make a change. He or she's got to make a change, got to make an impact fast. Do I have ideas that can help Terry? And if I say to myself, yes, Jill, I do have some ideas, then I can get on the phone or get by email and I can actually have a nice message that I could send out, which would focus on, hi, Terry, see you're new in your position at XYZ Corporation. I noticed from you reading about them in the paper that your sales were stagnant the last 2 quarters. I've got some ideas that might be able to help you out. Let's set up a time to talk. That's a whole lot different than saying, hi, Terry, this is Jill Konrath. I'm with XYZ Corporation, and I sell sales training.
Right.
That's different. It's like, I see you're new in this position, that your company sales have been stagnant in the last 2 quarters. I've got some ideas that might help you out. It's very business-like, professional, and there's not 1 ounce of salesiness in it at all.
Do you recommend people get like a premium account on LinkedIn so they can use that in mail, or do you see people are pretty responsive to just accepting new connections if you
Well, I don't
find them?
necessarily think you should be connecting with somebody. Like if I saw Terry get the new in the position, I don't know if I'd necessarily try to connect with Terry first. What I would do is look at my research and see if anybody I knew Terry.
Right.
And then I'd probably pick up the phone or send an email to my friend who knew Terry and say, hi, Joanne. I see that you're, hi, Joanne, long time no see. Hope things are going well with you. By the way, I see that you're connected with Terry at XYZ Corporation. I'd like to set up a time to talk with him about some issues related to this. I'm wondering if you'd mind hooking me up with him. And I'd go the normal route. Selling is about people, not LinkedIn.
I thought selling was all about money. You just put dollar figures on people and just go after for the kill. No?
I've always found quite the opposite, that I make better money when I focus on the people. Right. And then the money just comes flowing in. Right.
What do you give? Do you give advice about like starting groups or hanging out, answering questions? Any other ways folks could leverage LinkedIn?
Oh, there's a gazillion ways people can leverage it. I do have the survey results on my website, and it's in an ebook called Cracking the LinkedIn Sales Code. And it's really fascinating, the difference between the top sellers and everybody else. But yes, top sellers have really good profiles. They look up and they research far more and far deeper, and they find multiple connections within an account. They, many of them are active in groups, and they're active in groups that their targeted customers belong to. So, for example, if I'm selling to clinics, if they're my target customer, they would be active in, clinic administrator groups. Or if I sell to event planners, I would be active in event planners groups. There are groups on LinkedIn for just about everything. Or if I sell to CFOs, there are a gazillion CFO groups. There's, CFO groups in certain geographies. So you join the groups, but you never, ever pitch. Ever. pitch because you turn people off so fast. But you can communicate with people. You can post interesting information. You can comment on what other people have posted. And then you start to become a giver, that a person is perceived as helping the overall community,
right,
as opposed to a taker or a shark.
Well, and I love your resources. So it's at jillkonrath.com. I'm looking here now, cracking the LinkedIn sales code, attracting more customers, leveraging trigger events, sales wisdom from the wild. I haven't gotten that one yet, but that may be my reading over the weekend.
It's a fun one. It's about what I learned from the animals of the African plains when I was visiting South Africa.
That's amazing.
It's kind of fun. It's just a fun one.
So, you have consulted and trained, some big companies.
Yes.
Are they changing? Are you seeing a change as the internet has evolved and social media, or after the financial collapse? How are they responding to it? How are they teaching their salespeople to sell?
Well, there's a book out right now called The Challenger Sale, and a lot of people are trying to embrace, the bigger companies trying to embrace that methodology. It's something that I've been talking about for years, but it's really about turning your salespeople into resourceful people, not salespeople. The consultant that we talked about earlier, there's somebody who really understands their industry or their targeted customer really, really well, and they are not. How can I say it? They're not responsive to people and just, how can I help you? They are literally going in and saying, Wes, I know that most VPs of sales that I'm dealing with right now are struggling with these particular issues. I thought you might be interested in learning more about what they're doing to increase their sales productivity. So they're turning their salespeople into consultants who are leading with insight and ideas and information that's valuable.
Does cold calling still work?
If you've done your homework, it does. You can't just pick up the phone and dial for dollars. Not if you're going to try to get into a big corporation or even a medium corporation. People are just too busy today to pick up. To listen to somebody who hasn't been willing to invest time learning about them prior to meeting.
Right.
They're very discriminating.
Yep.
Today, so. Will cold calling work? Cold calling will work if you've paid your dues and done your research and crafted messaging that speaks directly to the person. But it's not cold then, because you've done your, it's kind of warm because you've spent time figuring out what's important and how to talk to this person as an equal.
Is it recommended to still go for the top? Do you teach your clients to start at the top and work down, go all the way to the CEO of even a big company?
No, I think it's stupid.
Okay. Tell us how you really feel, please.
Okay, I will. Let me just net it out. Oh, I can't say those words on this, can I?
Sure.
No. I'm not going to swear. But I think it's really stupid. There are some things, if you are selling enterprise systems, and enterprise means it impacts the whole company,
right,
or a whole big division, then it's smart to go to the top because you have what you're selling affects the strategic direction of the corporation. But if you're selling graphics design services, or if you're selling something to the safety, director, I think it's like, why would you go to the top? That's not where they are. You can go to LinkedIn and do searches with keywords to find out who's the right person to contact.
Right.
And go there. And the higher up, the higher up you are, you have to be, and to get in at higher levels, you have to have some ground-changing products or services, and you have to have insight from the middle too. So you could talk to some other people in the organization, and you have some good ideas now, and then you can go to the top, and that they're game-changing ideas as opposed to that. But how many of us sell game-changing ideas?
Right. What's your take on scripts? Maybe this is for a smaller company or new salespeople. Do you encourage your managers to create scripts and have people follow it, or do you just have them have a rough outline and be more conversational? Or How do they start?
I teach people to write a script.
Okay.
And say it out loud about it a gazillion times, but not to memorize it. They have to make it themselves. They have to make it. They have to make it personalized so that it sounds. So it's like they're talking. And most script writing is pretty disgusting.
Yep.
And it goes back to the Hi West. This is I'd like to introduce myself. I'm the account executive at Acme Printing, and we specialize in full-length restaurant menus and brochures and marketing collateral, and we do. Yeah, I mean, so that's most people are instructed by their management to make sure that here's our company, here's what we specialize in, and then they say something like, and I'd love to set up a time to come out and meet with you to find out how you're currently handling your printing needs, and it's like, boring. So most people who have a script have a lousy script. Right. And what it has to go to is thinking about a script as something that sets you up. Like in the first sentence, you have to sound like a credible resource. And the second sentence has to pique curiosity. And then you have to, suggest a logical next step. But most people don't do that. Right.
I think that's how I evolved to where I am. I think I was always a closet marketer trapped in a salesman's body.
Is that scary or not?
Yeah, because to be a good salesman, you have to understand marketing. Right? You have to be able to write that good script. Because I'm a big proponent of it. And I always tell people, I say, look, how much money did Oprah and David Letterman and Tom Cruise make last year? A lot more money than us. And what do they do for a living? They deliver a script that they was written in advance, and they rehearsed and made their own.
Yep.
Right? And then Oprah and Letterman, they ask good questions. Got to say that too. Salespeople, you got to ask good questions. And then that's how, I was in high tech for many years, and I would learn the product. I was always pretty good, but I wasn't an engineer. But I always told people, if I can ask better questions, I don't really have to know anything about the Duma Flitchy floppy that I'm selling. I just have to know how it's used.
Yep. Right? I totally agree with you.
So where can people get good scripts, though? You've seen it. I know. You get a sales manager that is smart enough or frustrated enough, and they finally say, all right, we need some help. They bring you in, but they've never had this type of training. I've always said, like 98% of people have never had sales training. They've just had product training.
Exactly. You're exactly right.
And they thought it was sales training, but now you come in, and in a way, you're a threat to that manager, because however long they've been a manager, they haven't done it the way you're about to teach them. How do you help that manager save face?
Oh, it's easy. The game has changed. The customers have changed. It's not the customers have changed. Their expectations are fundamentally different. They're overwhelmed, crazy busy, and we have to change to address that. Okay. So it's not like you're a bad guy. It's just like things changed. Right. And honestly, when I do go in and work with companies, one of the first things I do is an improv role play where I play the role of their targeted customer. Right. And I show, and I get some of them to play with me, and we show a morning in the life of Jill Konrath, your crazy busy customer. Right. And then they do that, and then I say, okay, now let's look at the kind of messaging that you've created. How do you think Jill would respond to that? Right. If you actually called her? If you just saw what went on in her office prior to her listening to her voicemail messages or reading her emails, what do you think she's going to do with your I shouldn't say stupid, with your carefully crafted script that says everything? So we role play on that. And it becomes glaringly obvious that a crazy busy customer cannot handle that marketing pablum stuff. Right. They hate it.
Yeah. What are they going to do with the poo-poo you just delivered, right?
I tell people that, your customers, your prospects are sitting with their finger on the delete button at all times. Yeah. And that's really true. You do it, I do it, we go through our email, and where's your finger? On the delete thing, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as you decide that this is not relevant to what you're doing, you delete people. Right. And the same thing with the phone. You'll listen as long as you can, and if it sounds like a salesperson calling, you delete them. But if it sounds like an intelligent person calling with some ideas, you might call them back.
so funny. I do the same thing. You're talking about sales, talking about marketing. I'm like, put yourself in their shoes. I'm like, how many of you have dual monitors or even three? Most will raise their hand. How many of you have two computers, maybe a desktop and a laptop? They'll raise their hand. How many of you have even two cell phones or smartphones? A lot of people even, carry a work phone and a personal.
Yeah.
Like how many of you have Skype and Twitter and everything open? Email. I'm like, okay, and then the phone rings. And there you are.
Yeah.
So it's that same thing. Put yourself in their shoes. They're just swamped, and you better be good.
Yep, that's for darn sure.
Do you teach much or get into like direct mail, sending letters, postcards?
No, I don't do it. I don't get into that. That's not my.
Okay.
That's not my game.
So how do you teach your clients to set good appointments? Reach decision makers, set a firm appointment that's not blown off, that the decision maker actually shows up, that they don't kick over to one of their minions because they really don't want to be there. Do you have tips or advice on that?
Well, I think if the premise of your meeting is to address one of their needs and help them achieve their goals, I think you get blown off a whole lot less. Let me say that from the first part.
Okay.
Just because they think that what you're saying is worth meeting with. But if you're just coming in to talk about your stuff again, you're easy to blow off. I'd blow you off too. So the first thing is you have to change your messaging so that it sounds relevant and high priority. Okay. I mean, that would be the number one thing. The other thing that I think is really helpful these days is to suggest a short initial meeting on the phone to talk about a few things.
Okay.
That people are hesitant to give up an hour or a half hour of their time to a stranger.
Right.
So I think sometimes you can suggest, how about we get on the phone for about 10 minutes, Wes, and see if this makes any sense.
Right.
And it lets you off the hook, and it doesn't make you commit a whole lot of time to me.
Right.
Now, at that point, I need to make sure that 10 or 15 minutes is done well. I need to think about how I'm going to position what we want to talk about. I need to think specifically about what questions I should be asking in order to find out if, in fact, they may have a need that we can address.
How do salespeople treat receptionists and executive assistants?
The same way they treat the decision maker.
Okay.
If I'm calling to speak to Bob, about shortening time to revenue and new product introductions, I would talk to the receptionist and I'd say I'd like to speak to Bob, and she'd say about what, and I'd say about shrinking time to revenue on new product introductions.
Okay.
And that's if it's a priority of Bob's, guess what? He's gonna want to meet with you. So it's focused on the business issue.
What's your advice on voicemail?
Leave a voicemail, but leave a good message that follows the same pattern if you get somebody who's on the phone, where you want, number one, establish credibility in your first sentence. You pique curiosity, and you suggest a time to get together, and maybe even reference that you're going to be sending an email.
If somebody's big enough, do you just keep calling and leave the same voicemail till they finally give up and take your call?
Well, I don't think you'd leave the same voicemail. I think you should be more creative.
Okay.
And think there are a lot of different ways to say things. Like I can talk about increasing sales, or I could talk about shortening their sales cycle, or I could talk about speeding up their sales cycle. There's a lot of ways to say the same thing.
Right.
And people sell different things, so.
Yeah, I tell people to script it out, just like, I do a lot with email marketing and direct mail, and it's sequential, mixing email with direct mail, and I encourage them, just like you said, have a story. Have your 5 or 7 or 10 talking points, and each time leave a different one.
That's exactly right. You don't need to, most people try to cram. They think they need to cram, like they have a voicemail message or email message that has 3 bullet points. Well, to me, have three messages out of that. Right. Don't have all 3 packed in one. Use one for this, the next one for that, and then the third one.
Do you encourage folks to kind of do like an all-out assault, if you will. I mean, if it's a big targeted company, like find any way in, or try to just go after that key person.
Okay, well, I probably wouldn't use a war analogy in the way I describe things. It's an all-out assault. However, I would say that if you have an opportunity or you see that you could help a company because there's been some event that happened that wakes you up that they might be changing their priorities, I really believe that you need to plan on 8 to 10 or 12 touches. Right. Touches being like email, voicemail, could be sending out the postcards, a direct letter, direct mail, but you need to plan on multiple contact points because people are so busy they may just arbitrarily delete even a wonderful message.
Right.
Just because it doesn't work on that day for them. And over time, if you put together that campaign, it builds and it gets you become a presence. You can in the campaign you can send them links to articles. You can send a PDF file that might be valuable. Again, not stuffing, one at a time, and just keep going. Till the campaign is run out. But you have to think in terms of multiple things. And by the way, I would say you have to call multiple people too. I would never put my fate in the hands of one person.
Right. Very good. Well, we can direct everyone to your website, right? Jill Konrath with a K, K-O-N.
Konrath with a K, yes.
Yep. JillKonrath.com. They can follow you on Twitter. You got everything there. Facebook, YouTube, Google+, LinkedIn, and your RSS feed, and tons of free resources. So I thank you for taking the time to share your wisdom with our listeners.
Thanks so much, Wes, for having me.
Okay. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bam! There you have it from Miss Jill Konrath. Product knowledge is less important than sales skills. I love the fact that she brought that up. Reinforced what I was recommending. Your clients are more and better educated now than ever thanks to the internet. Make sure when they are doing their research that they are finding your information. Make sure they see you as that trusted resource. Even if you are a salesperson and you do not have the ability to create the actual content, maybe you don't control your company's website. Maybe you're in a highly regulated industry like healthcare, law, financial services. That's still no excuse, right? You can forward relevant information. You can forward PDFs and other types of documentation. You can share content from the Wall Street Journal or medical journals with your ideal prospects. Okay, you just have to get creative if you're in that situation. But recognize your prospects are just as overwhelmed as you are. So be creative. Go check out Jill's resources on LinkedIn. I've used LinkedIn for many years. I was an early adopter of that. I was fortunate enough to find it. I run several groups, one with almost 5,000 members right now. It's a private group that I control. And when people opt into that group, very few people realize this, but LinkedIn has templates and autoresponders. So I actually have people, when they join LinkedIn or when they ask to join my group, they are redirected to a landing page with an Infusionsoft web form where I ask a little more information about them because LinkedIn only lets me and you correspond from the group as insofar as a blast to the whole list only once a week. So by having them opt into my Infusionsoft account, I can now correspond with them as needed. Now, I still only reach out a few times a month at most. But if I need to get the word out, it's nice having that ability. So check out groups like she said. If you haven't been active on LinkedIn, go join some groups, start listening, observing, then sharing there. Okay, and then once you establish yourself as a credible resource, you can begin reaching out, forming connections, asking for introductions, and those will bear fruit because you were patient and planted, right? And before you tried to harvest, you planted by giving of yourself and of your time. What else did she say? Check out Rapportive. I mentioned that. That'll be in the show notes on session 16. Check out her Cracking the LinkedIn Sales Code. Again, it'll be on the website. She's got her sales wisdom from the wild. Really good little piece. She said, "Stupid to go straight to the top of a big company." I like that. What else? Scripts. Golly, I've been preaching that forever. You cannot just shoot from the hip. That's one of my 7 deadly sins of selling. I call it Annie Oakley-itis, shooting from the hip. Shooting over your shoulder with a mirror. Annie Oakley could do it. You and I cannot. When you have a script, when you know what it is you're going to say, when you know how the people are going to react because you've said the script over and over again, you can predict with great accuracy the results. So get your scripts going. Be creative with your voicemails. And again, to learn more about Jill, visit thesaleswhisperer.com, session 16, for all of the show notes and the links. And as always, thank you for listening. Please leave a comment here on the website and on iTunes. And thanks for listening. Good selling. Thank you for listening to the Sales Whisperer podcast at www.thesaleswhisperer.com. Now go sell something.